Hello there, guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Story Behind the House. And today, I have my client here with me. He closed on his first property at the top of this year, 2025. And we're going to be in the kitchen today, and I'm going to let him tell you all about his story, his testimony about how he purchased his first home. Are you ready, Milas?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's get it.
All right, let's do this. Let's get in the kitchen. Now, first, before we start, what are we cooking today?
Today we are making rotel.
We're making rotel.
My rotel. you know.
He said that his rotel is the best rotel ever. What makes it so special?
I learned how to make it from two of my favorite people, my mom, my grandma. But also, if people know that I'm making it right now, they might be mad that I tell them that I'm making it. So whether it's a birthday party, I like to host and have my friends over. So every event or function, I would make it, and it's gone before I can get any. So I'm excited to be able to have some today.
He is introducing his real estate agent to this famous rotel. Let's get in the kitchen and let's get started. Come on.
Let's go.
You go that way, I go this way.
Okay, ready?
Okay, Milas, so let's talk about today's ingredients. What are we going to use to make this rotel?
All right, so I'm a ground turkey person. So we have some ground turkey here, and we have our actual rotel, which is the diced tomatoes.
Okay, this is our rotel.
Yes.
Now, see, you are introducing me to something. Well, I know people use rotel, but I just be putting the salsa in the cheese and call it a day. But we have real rotel.
Yes. So this is what's actually the rotel, but we call the dip itself rotel. And then we have some diced peppers here. And
jalapeno.
With the Velveeta cheese. So
Got to have a
Some
Velveeta.
people don't like Velveeta, but it's what makes the dip.
We like Velveeta.
We like Velveeta over
Okay.
here. And we have some queso cheese here.
Okay.
So, and then of course we have seasonings. Most of the time you have these seasonings. You have these specific seasonings in your cabinet. Everyone usually does. So your basics like garlic powder, onion powder.
Okay, we got to have the garlic and onion powder go in everything.
Everything. It's a staple.
Absolutely. Okay.
And then, you got your Tony's or your favorite Creole seasoning of choice. Everybody makes their meat seasonings different, so just go from there.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started.
All right, so go ahead and get the olive oil going in, let that warm up.
All right. Put a little bit of olive oil in there, like that.
Yes.
As our girl Tab say.
Yes, shout out to Tab.
Now, as you're cooking and as you are starting this thing off, now, we are in front of a live studio audience, so forgive the little noise that you hear in the background. Anyway, we're going to keep this thing rolling. Now, tell me, Milas, as you begin cooking, you all see what we're doing here. Why did you decide that now was the time to purchase your first home? Now, do you mind? I know people don't tell the age, but do you mind telling your age?
I am 27. I turned 27 on March 24th, and I actually closed on my property March 21st.
Ooh. Okay, Milas, so tell us a little bit about what made you decide to purchase your first property. And you're not even 30 years old. You were what, 27?
Yeah, I just turned 27 on March 24th, and then I closed on March 21st. So I became a homeowner at 26.
26?
So I'm 27 now, but still, that's major.
What is that? Is that Gen Z? That's not even millennial.
I'm a zillennial.
Okay.
So I'm like at the end of millennial, but the beginning of zillennial. So we're a little mixture.
The zillennials are in the building,
yes.
And very, very smart. So you decided that now was the time. Tell us a little bit about what was happening in your life that made you decide at 26 years old, it's time for me to make my first real estate purchase. We're going to turn this up just a little bit.
I graduated from Georgia Southern in 2020. So, of course, growing up, you living with your parents, but being in college, I've had a roommate since fall of 2016. And then when I graduated, I stayed with two of my friends, and then it was just, you get to a point where you need your own space, wanting to, it's fun, like, you can save money if you stay with friends, having a house, we're able to, have events, have friends over, parties, but then you kind of like start to outgrow your space, and, a king needs his own palace.
Come on, king!
So
yes!
I started, I was like, well, let me look into apartments.
Okay.
So I was looking into, I was apartment hunting. I was touring with Zillow. Shout out to Zillow though, because that's how we got our house that we were renting at the time. But my parents were like, maybe you should look into buying a property.
Okay.
But at that point, I was like, let me just move out of this house first. Then I can figure things out. So like I had a couple friends that, worked at a certain like complexes, I was able to tour with them. And my thing was, I was just like, a lot of these new apartments, they all look the same. You walk in, you got your island and then, living room and then your bedroom. So I wanted something that was more, a little bit more seasoned, like, kind of older, in a sense, not like,
something built
with flavor,
Come on, I'm the same way. So you wanted something with a little bit of character and charm, but what I really want to roll back to is the fact that you knew that it was a time where sharing your space just wasn't for you anymore.
Yeah, it wasn't for me. And it was either I just needed to get out the house and get my own space. My closet is getting too full. Of course, you wake up, there's random people in your living room. Yeah. I mean, I'm not in college no more, big boy status, grown man status. And so one day I was just like, well, maybe I should, rent, maybe, I ain't gotta worry about a house. I ain't gotta worry about changing the roof if I rent an apartment and whatnot. And, my parents were like, just look into buying. So one day I just said, let me tour a condo. And so I toured my first property on my own with Zillow, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know about getting pre-approved. I was just walking out on faith. And
come on, don't just slide by there. You did what?
I was walking out on faith.
Come on, that's what I love about me and my clients. One thing we're gonna do is acknowledge that everything is a faith walk. Everything. And so I know a lot of first-time home buyers are just like you, but what will keep them stuck is, I don't know what I'm doing, so I won't even go out and I won't even tour. But I believe that the reason you made it this far and you crossed that threshold to actually closing on your property is because you decided to step out regardless if you knew what you were doing or not. Now, by the way, let's go back to this recipe here. So Milas, we are putting every single seasoning in this meat.
Yes. Like I said, whatever you got inside the house, as if you were
put it all in there.
Grinding your own meat, put it in there, because that's the flavor comes in with the meat too. So if you only put salt and pepper in your ground turkey or ground beef, then that's you. But me, whatever is in the cabinet, most of the time it's something like this. Everybody usually have Tony's or slap your mama. We always gotta have
slap your mama.
Powder. Can't go too light on a garlic powder. You can put as much as you want there.
Right. So, and we're gonna drain off the excess fat once we get finished, correct?
Yeah, it just depends.
Oh, you gonna keep it in there? Now you being country now, Miles.
But ground turkey is different from ground beef, so you don't have to worry about excess fat and whatnot. Typically, that's how you know when it's done, because it dries up. So that's one thing I like about cooking with ground turkey is you don't have to rinse it. But everyone makes their food differently. So we're gonna trust the process. This is the all famous Rotel. Give me 1 second. Pass me the can opener so I can go ahead and open up these cans for us. Yes, thank you. I think this is fine. I should be able to get it done. Okay, so we stepped out on faith and we decided to tour. Now, let's get to you meeting me and then deciding, because y'all, what I really want y'all to hear about is what this home shopping process was like, okay? So I'm gonna skip to the part where you decided that a condo was for you, because initially he had all of the advice in his ear that you need to get a single family, but you already had your heart really set on a condo. How did you actually come to the place to decide to go for what you want and not everybody else? Well, I was looking at some apartments and I was like, okay, these are nice. There's other types of floor plans. And I met Terrica through a lender that was used by my family members at the time.
Shout out to Alvin Jameson.
Yes, so I got connected through my dad used him for his lender when he bought his home about 7 years ago or so. And once I left the Zillow guy. I mean, he was just there to just help me tour anyway. It wasn't necessarily like he was my official realtor.
Okay.
So one day I was like, you know what? I don't think this house stuff gonna be for me. Let me look at these apartments.
I'm struggling.
I remember I was talking, I was talking to Alvin. He was like, no, just think about it again. And then my dad was just like, follow your heart. And my parents were being supportive. But I remember when after I was like kind of like stressed at the time. I was like, going through those questions like, do I really want to drive 30 minutes out from the city, or do I want to, have to deal with getting my grass cut? Do I want to have to deal with, getting my roof replaced or gutters cleaned, and all those different types of questions that a lot of people kind of ask themselves when it comes to, becoming first-time home buyers. And then I remember when I met with Terrica. We met in person.
Life-changing, changing life.
I told her how like the first place I looked at was a condo, and it was different. It had like, like the historical feel to it.
I'm gonna try this
like
again.
that touch. And we were looking at single family homes. I was like, for what I got pre-approved for it, that wasn't really up my alley,
Yeah.
And
let me just stop you right there. For your first purchase, this is for anybody that's watching, and this is your first time purchasing a home. Listen, you don't need to wait until you get the dream budget to buy your dream home. The name of the game, especially in our market here in the Metro Atlanta area, you want to get in the game. You want to begin to build that equity. So when you first start out, your budget may not be that great. It may not even be 300 or 400 or 500. You could actually be pre-approved in the twos. Remember, many of you all first time purchasing your home, you could be in your 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever it is. But the goal here is to get you in and to start. Correct?
exactly.
Okay, all right. Now, and I've actually been watching your community. There are already people who have already began purchasing homes in the area for more than what you purchased for.
Yes.
Hello, we talking equity within 3-4 months. Hello. So anyways, all right, real quick, we got to get y'all back to the recipe. We cooking now. See, I was a little bit scared with this little hot plate we got over here. It was smoking, but it's smoking in the right direction.
Yeah.
And he's still seasoning. Let me test it out real quick.
I wouldn't test it yet.
Why not?
Because it's not done.
You done put a lot of seasoning in there.
You can just.
Now y'all know I like to cook too, but I'm letting my clients handle this time.
I don't think it's ready to taste.
That is very ready.
Not for me.
I don't see no pink in there. And it's ground turkey. Anyway, all right, so we cooking with grease. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a smaller skillet, so it's more build up.
Gotcha.
Liquid.
But I do see what you're saying. It's absorbing. It's not as much.
Yeah, because ground turkey itself, it doesn't have like that same flavor profile as ground beef in a sense.
Okay.
If you know. So that's like you gotta season it a little bit heavier than you would do ground beef.
Do we?
But that's it's like if you eat a turkey burger versus eating like an actual burger. You can tell the flavor profile, and ground turkey can be a little bit drier in a sense. So
I let you all know what I've been doing over here on the side. I have been struggling with this can opener, but I finally got our peppers open. Now, is this gonna be really spicy? Because
did you get jalapenos or those?
These are green chili.
Oh yeah,
green chilies.
Those are the right ones. They won't be too spicy.
Okay, so I've opened up our green chilies. I opened up our Rotel, and then this is our queso.
Yes.
Okay, testing out my muscles.
So,
all right, so we got that open. So we needed queso and Velveeta for this.
Yeah. So once the meat once the liquid kind of dries up,
okay.
What we'll do, we'll put the Rotel inside the pot first, and then we'll.
So this first.
Yeah, but I'm gonna wait till this kind of finish cooking.
Now, where are you from, Milas?
I am originally from Birmingham, but
this is some good old Birmingham Rotel, because he talking about it ain't done. We want to make sure it's well, okay?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama, but I have been in Atlanta since 2003. So
okay.
I grew up here, but I'm like a little hybrid.
Yeah. We'll give you a little peach.
Yeah.
We'll give you a little peach. Okay, so let me go to the, now y'all, this was very special because you are actually one of my youngest clients, okay? And I've been doing this almost a decade. And let's skip to the part where you decided on the condo over the single family, right?
Yes.
But there was a time in your negotiation process where your parents got involved. Now, I am not anti-parents, okay? A majority of my first-time home buyers, they always have their parents' input or a trusted source. But it got to be a little bit, it was a little bit. Shout out to the parents. Hey, y'all, mom and dad.
Yes.
Tell us what that was like behind the scenes for you, because you are a good son. You wanted to make sure you were using wisdom. This was like the key word. It was wisdom, 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 which I totally respect.
And faith.
Wisdom and faith, okay? Tell us how you decided to, because I think there was a point in time where maybe parents were like, just back off for a second. How did you get over that hurdle?
I think necessarily was I started the process like on my own in a sense. Once I sat with Terrica, she knew what my heart was. She's like, okay, let's get you a condo. And of course, one big thing, even my lender was saying, stay away from condos and townhouses because of HOA fees. And that was a big thing in a sense. So, me going through this process on my own, but I didn't, necessarily keep my parents in the loop of everything I was doing, because I think I went under contract, or we were going through the due diligence period of one condo that we looked at, and that's why my first time telling my parents of like how far I was in the process, like, hey, I have this property under contract. So they're like, oh, what? And that was, you'll know how much seasoning, basically. If you can smell your seasoning, then that's good. If you can't smell nothing, then
I see what you're saying. It actually has absorbed, y'all, and it smells so good.
So
okay, go ahead.
But essentially, though, I remember I told my mom, I was like, hey, I have this condo under contract, and she's like, what? She's surprised, but she's also supportive, but she understands that, I'm doing this on my own. I'm an adult. She wants me to be able to go through the process, of course, keeping God first, praying throughout everything. That's how I know it's gonna be all right in the end.
Come on.
But I will say there were questions that were asked in a sense of like, that I didn't think about. It wasn't necessarily there were like a lot of pushback. It was just, well, have you thought about, well, what if you want a 2-bedroom, or, are you sure you don't want to go the single family route? Or it's just one question would lead to other questions that I didn't necessarily ask, which I think is important as a first-time home buyer. Like, what if you do want to grill, or what if, like simple things like parking, or, one question can kind of like lead to an influx of more things, just up front, and I know what was one concerning thing was the HOA fee. Just for all the condos that we're looking at, they're at least about $700 a month.
Yes.
On top of their mortgage. So that was one big thing, and they were supportive. It was really just the HOA fee, and then of course on the financial side, there was kind of like questions that they asked, because of course they're both in their second home that they purchased themselves. So them going through the process already, it's certain stuff that I didn't know about. I know the surface level things, but they're like, okay, so what actually are you bringing to the table for your closing costs, or why is it this high compared to normal, or why do you have to pay your credit card off? Me just going with the flow. Of course, I'm going by faith and wisdom, but at the same time, it's just like you have to, knowledge is power. That's important. That's key. So it's easy. I'm not saying that you'll get taken advantage of or whatnot. Of course, having a great realtor like Terrica, just to speak up, help you speak up for yourself, but also speak up for you in a sense. But if you have parents that care for you, they're concerned. They want to make sure that you're not putting yourself in a situation that, not saying that you can't handle, because we know God can do all things.
Come on.
Anything
It's the constant reminder that God,
yes,
is involved.
And I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But at the same time, faith without works is nothing. But also on top of that, you have to have wisdom. Just because you got pre-approved for a $250,000 house, that $250 is the max in a sense. But then one thing we had to consider was the HOA is also being added into the debt to income ratio.
And that's another thing. My client's gonna leave from the table a little bit more knowledgeable than when they went in. So Milas, let me have a little bit.
Yeah, you can try it now.
Thank you. Let me taste just a little bit, y'all. I'm greedy, and okay, y'all gonna learn that real quick. Let's see.
But
Milas, that tastes good. Okay, do you think it's done now?
Almost.
That's good right there. I can't wait to get me a little bit of that.
But yeah, my parents, they were supportive of me, but it was just certain things that they know more about. Your parents know more than you most of the time. Of course, we think we're grown. We know we can handle everything on our own.
Yeah.
But I was just going with the flow. Like I'm a type of go with the flow type of person. And
me too. People don't think I am, but really, I do know how to go with the flow. Ain't that right?
So, and of course, one thing that we discussed was like the financial side of things, and I was just like signing stuff, or of course there's a lot of paperwork. So just on both sides, Terrica sent me things. Okay, make sure you sign this. Make sure you read over it. But we went over those. I asked her questions I need to ask for anything I didn't understand. She kind of like helped me, pinpoint it in a sense. But I will say, like on the financial side with my lender, there were like a few bumps in the road in a sense, or just kind of like how things were done. So I think it's important for you to do your research, and if you don't understand something, don't be afraid to ask those questions.
Yes.
Even if it's something simple, there's no dumb question. Even if you have to throw it into ChatGPT.
Let me tell y'all, I have never had a client to put Milas. Now, you are in what industry?
So I work in broadcast IT, but I also do AI research. So
Milas put every single thing in ChatGPT
that
he could. He also put everything in a spreadsheet. Baby, listen, my real estate agent brain, I was like, okay, what's happening? But the organization was very key. And so, of course, everybody had to adjust to that. And I think we did a pretty good job. I do want to go back to just a real gem. Anybody that is interested in a condo, okay, or attached, he trying to put some more. Did you even taste it?
I ain't got to taste it.
He can smell it. This is his recipe. It tastes good though, y'all. But anybody that's interested in an attached dwelling, okay, especially if you're thinking about inner city living, your HOA costs are going to be almost the cost of your mortgage. And I call it a luxury tax. You are paying because you have your fingertips literally at everything. You can walk everywhere. So it's just a different way of living for my people who are inner city versus those that want to stay outside of the city. Is nothing wrong with that. So we really had to get over that hump. So really quickly here, our meat is finally done. It is sizzling and it's smelling good. Now, what are we about to do now?
So now we're going to actually get to the fun part.
Okay, the mixing. This is what I'm here for, mixing.
So first, I like to add my rotel and my peppers into, a pot of your choice, and just let it like get to a simmer. And I do season that aspect of it too.
No, we seasoning that too.
Yes.
Look here.
It's like I said, ground turkey is different. So you gotta put that extra seasoning in ground turkey. So people that cook with ground turkey, y'all know how it is. It's not like ground beef. You gotta. Your hand can never be too heavy.
Oh, really?
Unless it is. You'll know after the fact, but you don't have to overdo the seasoning for the actual tomatoes part of the rotel. Just a little bit, even if like I like pink Himalayan salt. It's strong. It brings out the flavor of everything. So just a dab or do would work. But you can't go wrong with extra garlic powder and onion powder. So.
All right. Y'all ready to test out this Rotel in here? Yeah. Our live studio audience, they ready to test. Okay, so let's see. Are we pouring this in here first?
Yeah, you can pour that in there.
Okay. Oops. We're going to pour it in there first. Okay.
But yeah, and I would say like...
The whole can?
Yeah, the whole can.
The whole can.
We'll add the peppers.
And then the whole can of peppers. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see. All right.
And then so...
And then...
This,
okay.
Spoon. Yeah. Just give it a little mix.
A little whisk there. And then what are we seasoning our peppers and tomatoes with? Well, Rotel.
So, like I said, cook with your resources and what you got in your cabinet. You know how to season and flavor your food of your choice. I will say, let's add some, what is this? Garlic powder and onion powder.
Garlic and onion. Okay. That's good.
Yep, that's good.
All right.
And if you don't know what to do, I like to pray before I cook too. So
Come
always
on.
Pray before you do.
Let the Holy Spirit lead you,
Yeah.
Lord. Let this be nourishment to our bodies. I love it. And this is a low carb meal. So for anybody that's trying to keep it fine, this is a good one, okay?
Yes. And I would say just one thing about that too, just praying before you do everything. Like very beginning, once I knew, I said, well, Lord, can you order my steps, whether it's renting or buying, but you also got to know what you want in a sense too. And
yes.
You know, whoever you involve in your process, I would say keep it to a minimum, because I just kept it between me and my parents. One parent knew a little bit more than the other, but you got to know how, if you know your parents or whoever, you know who to involve in what, who to talk to about what.
That is such a gem. I love that.
And I would say just like kind of like going back into that, you know, the things that they brought up that I didn't think about, it kind of made, it wasn't stressful for me, but it's like, okay, there's just two different voices, or, you know, one person would ask a question and you just, you know, that's an influx of more things like, okay, so what if I want to do X, Y, Z, or, you know, do I want to, you know, have land or whatnot? But you got to just kind of go with your heart and like what you want. In a sense, you have to know what you want. And that was a big thing for me, because then I got to a point where I was like, well,
I'm sorry, I'm making so much noise.
Would it be better for me to, you know, not go this route because of the HOA fees, and I'm thinking about my current circumstances, you know, my finances, you know, thinking about my current job, or like I don't want to have to burn myself out doing, you know, like side hustles or like photography, XYZ, because that's not a fun place as a burnt out creative in a sense, but also working full time. But you know, sometimes people around you, they may not understand or see the vision. Especially if God has something for you and in store for you, we can't see the big picture or full picture, but also that's where it comes in with having that faith, that wisdom. But just, I think one thing you were talking about was your floor becoming your ceiling.
Yes, Lord.
And when God elevates you or he's preparing you, it's like a process. And, you know, you have to go through some pruning. You have to go through, I'm not saying tough times, but in order for your oil to flow, you know.
Woo! Look, I ain't even got to preach to y'all, because my client, he got...
Like, the olive has to go through the shaking, the pressing, and the beating, you know, like greater is coming. But it's like, it could be stressful because like, well, there's a lot of doubt that might come into play. And, you know, it's kind of like, it's scary when you're in it, or it's scary like, okay, I'm used to splitting my rent, and, you know, I'm only paying $450, $600 a month. So, you know, going into my HOA fee is what I used to be paid monthly. And then, so on top of that, I'm just like, it's a lot, you know, it's a lot of things that I was thinking about, worrying about, and I'm just going back and forth. I was like, well, I don't think this is for me.
He sure did call me a few times about stressing me out.
Yes, because I was stressed out too. And then, you know, it was some stressful things going on the financial side, because some things weren't like as clear. But then as I started to really understand what I was getting myself into, it was like my eyes kind of got big. Like, okay, so This is why XYZ is this way. And
Yeah.
then, but you know, I am kind of glad that I did have my parents come into the picture because
Yeah.
it was just one. Of course, your parents. You know, if you got good parents, they're gonna ride for you in the end. And sometimes, you know, they may not understand or see where you're coming from, or you know, they already got their properties. They bought, you know, people bought their homes like in 2018, so things were a little bit cheaper
Come on.
then. But you know, having a good team, you know, having a good realtor, good, you know, lender, and then people that's supporting you. Like, you don't have to tell everybody everything. It's not necessarily because they're gonna, you know, kind of bring you down or say, oh, you can't do this or you XYZ or, you know, worry about being jealous. Sometimes, like,
Oh.
yeah, you can turn that down.
I'll turn it down.
So, side note, once your
Okay.
rotel and pepper start to sizzle,
Uh-huh.
that's when you can add the ground turkey to it.
Now, when he said that this was his famous rotel and nobody does it like him, honestly, you all, as much rotel as I have eaten, I have never seen the process this way. So I'm very excited, and I almost like just want to test it again and again, but I'm gonna stop being greedy.
But you know,
Okay.
And I will say, like, enjoy the process. You know, once you figure out like what you want to go down, which route. You know, I remember when me and Terrica, we toured. I can't remember. It was like M Street or no, it was William Oliver Building. That's downtown, and we toured a unit. It looked nice online, and then in person, you know, they had all the things I was looking for. Like, I wanted a place with like a rooftop patio, and I was looking for apartments that had those like private rooftop decks. It had everything, but it just it didn't feel like me in a sense. And then, you know, you have to also got to pay attention to who lives there too. And you know, like, we walked past some people, they didn't speak, or you know, they looked a little angry, or I thought they was about to go beat somebody up or something. You know, the hallways, you know, it wasn't as, it had like, you know, weird smell, stuff like that.
Oh my God.
I mean,
listen, all of that counts when you're in the home buying process.
especially with the being in that 250 and under range. So I'm like, I need to get the best bang for my buck. And I remember we toured another unit. We need a knife.
Can we mix now?
Yes, so what I do, I like to, so what I do with the Velveeta cheese, I like to cut it in cubes.
Okay. Everything got a process. I love it.
So yeah, we toured another building, which is in the same area downtown, the Healy building. And it was very regal. It was also another historical building. And I think the unit we looked at was 5F, and they wanted like $235 for that one. And they wouldn't go down to Milas, what we were like negotiating for. I think we was trying to ask for like $215 if we cover closing costs. But also, you got to consider that HOA fee, because that is a part of your DTI, your debt to income ratio. They wouldn't accept our offer, but I remember, like, I just walked in, it was such a beautiful unit, and I was just like cheesing. And that's one thing about condos compared to apartments. You can remodel it however you want, in a sense. So if you don't like the countertops, you can have that gutted out. Put your own feng shui in it if you got a good contractor. And I remember we're about to leave.
Put these in there.
Yeah. And Terrica was like, go ahead, do your thing. You got to go back over, pray over it. I said, I need to go pray real quick. I was like, well, God, if this is the one, then I asked if you can just lead me. You
Come
know,
on. If this is the one.
order my steps, you know, in Jesus' name.
Yes.
And I remember, like, I couldn't stop smiling. And that's like, that was one sign for me. And so we went back, we looked at some more buildings, units and other buildings in the area. And it just wasn't hitting. Like, everything kept leading back to the Healy building.
Yeah.
We found a property that was nice, and was under contract for it. I did the inspection, and then that's when I like told my parents. Well, I told my mom about it, and She was like, what? But she was like, she didn't want to like, intervene too much or say anything. But she knew that there was certain stuff that I probably wasn't thinking because obviously she knows her child, as she says. So I remember we did find another unit that was like in my, like, I think it was like 210 was in my price range. Still kind of a little higher. I forgot what made me not. Oh, I think when I was talking to my dad, he was like, you need to at least try to find a 2-bedroom. And I was thinking about that,
Right, because they wanted you to have a space for everybody else to come.
Yeah.
That's another thing too, shoppers, home buyers. Listen, you are buying that space for you and yours, right? That is first and foremost. And then secondary is, for the other people. But you have to think about what makes you feel good and what's going to be most comfortable for you first.
And that was a thing too, because I was like, well, I've catered to so many other people. It's time for me to focus on myself. But one thing that did get my attention was like,
this looking good.
Being a creative, I have a lot of stuff. So I'm like, I at least need some type of like office space or a closet, something where I can like put my equipment in, my backdrops, all that good things that comes with being a creative. And I just want to make sure I had enough space. So I decided to back out of that offer, just considering a few things. And then now I'm back at square one. And so it was kind of getting a little stressful because like, okay, I'm looking at condos, but I'm like, well, maybe I could get a single family home. I can get like a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom for that same price. I could make a sacrifice of having to have a 20, 30-minute commute. But it just, I don't know, it was something about that building in a sense. And one thing my mom was like, she was like, pray and ask God to give you a simple yet significant sign on whether or not this is for me. And then so we found, I remember one day I was working out, I was walking outside and I was praying and I was like, I don't know what to do, but what I'm going to do is just relax and then let go, let God. Once you pray, that show, you surrender it. Don't worry about it, don't think about it, because you don't want to intervene with God trying to do it, because God's a gentleman. He'll step to the side and say, hey, so you let go, and that's when I'm going to.
I love that.
And so I remember once I did that, I released my forehead stress, and then it was Valentine's Day, and I got a notification. It was a unit in the building. It was like in my price range. It was cheaper, and it had it had 1 bedroom plus a study. Bedrooms are technically bedrooms, but they have a closet. I think a window, right? Yes, we can add that in there now. Don't mean to interrupt. This is so good already, y'all. Now, I'm telling you, I have the whole thing. You might as well, yeah.
Okay. You gotta let me tell y'all, this is really the first time I've seen it done like this, and it's good.
So I remember I texted Terrica, I was like, hey, this property just dropped in the building. Can we go look at it? And she was like, we can try to go tomorrow or whatnot. And then I sent it to my lender. I was like, and I was doing a lot of research. I was on YouTube watching videos of other properties that were for sale, but no, those realtors they made videos of them. So I was just watching to see like how it looked. And I remember we toured it the next day. Of course, I said my prayer is for me. I remember like I was recording a video walking around. I finished the video saying that, but I was talking to myself, well, praying in a sense. And, Terrica, she put in an offer like that either that same day or the next day. And then, so yeah. Now once we added the other cheese, we can kind of like let it simmer a little bit, like simmer, and then, but we can really turn it off and then just keep stirring.
Okay, you got it. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna tidy up and prepare our chips because I'm ready. Studio audience, are you all ready? We ready for some nachos, rotel dip. Okay, so this is my fork.
We I looked at the place. Let it warm up just a little bit.
Okay.
I remember I looked at we looked at it. It was nice, but it was different. And I think looking at the other units, they were kind of dressed up a little bit more, like remodeled in a sense. But I know that one thing that I did want was a unit that was like a blank canvas. Like it's nice enough for me to move into. I didn't have to do much to it, but over time, like I want to be able to paint how I want to. I want to be able to, you know, change out my cabinets and redo like my bathrooms, etc. But this unit had like one and a half bath, 1.5 bedroom. It was like in the square footage that I wanted to, and in the right price range. And the other properties, I know the one I was under contract for, there was a few like hiccups within the inspection. And I was like, well, if I'm having to come out of, oh yeah, I remember my realtor was like, hey, you got to have $28,000 up front for this unit. And in my mind, I'm like, well, if I have to have that much money up front, like out of pocket, then I need to make sure I'm getting something that I want and that's worth my value. And I think that's what made me kind of become more hesitant, because I'm like, I need to have $28,000 in 2 weeks. And so I'm like, let me back out of this one. Like it was like a chip on the stove. So I'm like, I need everything to kind of at least be not perfect, but good enough for me to be able to move in ready. And so it's essentially,
you know, you got to have cooks in the kitchen and cleaners in the kitchen.
So essentially, like the next unit I looked at, that dropped on Valentine's Day, it, you know, it was perfect in a sense. But I think just looking at the other units in person, they were so nice. And then in my mind, I'm like, this kind of looks, it's nice, but I don't know if I like it in a sense. Or I think the financial side of things, that's when things kind of get real, when you hear what numbers you need up front, when things become official. And then it's like certain questions, like my parents like, okay, so do you actually know why you need to have $20-some thousand or such 17, or why the numbers keep changing? You know, that's when kind of like there was a little pushback from my parents, just because they want to make sure that, one, I'm not being taken advantage of or anything of that nature, or just going the flow, signing things. Because it's like, you know, even go to a dealership, you know, they're here to do their job, to make sure that we get what we need. But like I said, be with people like you trust. You know, have a lender that you trust, have a realtor that you trust. And Terrica has like been great along like through the whole process and journey. And
let's talk about this big number. So he's mentioning the 20,000 and the 30,000. You all, depending on how your deal is negotiated, you are responsible for your closing costs. That's all the time. You are always responsible for your closing costs. I'm sorry, not your closing costs, your down payment. Then on the back end, we are able to negotiate your closing costs. But you need to come in the door being prepared or thinking that you may have to take care of that, because every now and again, the seller will push back and go, I'm not taking care of closing costs, you are. Now, what are closing costs? Closing costs are the attorney fees. We have to pay our closing attorneys. Thank you to the closing attorneys who are responsible for clearing title and preparing everything you need for closing, all of your paperwork. But then on top of that, you also have taxes. Anytime money is transferred from one hand to the next or one place to the next, there are taxes. They're called transferable taxes, intangible taxes, everything you can think of, HOA, clearance letters, and all those things. Those are all going to be lumped into that large number of what it is to get your cash to close numbers. So they could be sometimes upwards of 20, 30, 100,000, depending on the price point of the home. So, but let's get back to our recipe here. I think we are all done. I'm so excited. Yes. I got our bowls rinsed out and I'm ready to sample this. Okay. So Milas, do the honors. Now, when do you serve? Can you put some of that in there for me? When do you serve Rotel?
Well, I serve Rotel if I'm having a party, or it could be an event, baby shower, or
come on, baby showers.
Friends over game night. So anytime that, or people want to say, hey, I'm having a birthday party, can you make Rotel for me to bring it? And then that's when I bring it. So usually I put chips in first and then put it on top, or some people like to.
Oh, put the chips in first. Okay, it's a process. Now you
but
are.
Everyone used to Rotel different, so.
No, it's fine. So our hands are clean, honey. We washed before we got started. We're old school cooks. I ain't worried about no gloves. Okay, so if you worried about gloves, it's the wrong cooking channel for you. All right. Okay. My granny never used gloves, and we all fine. Okay.
Yes. Well, yeah, usually like, special occasions, birthdays.
Look at that. It's so smooth.
Pool party, game night.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Georgia Southern. Go Eagles. So, we always doing something.
Okay.
It's homecoming every weekend. You want more? You think
No, this is good. So you put it on top of the chips. I'm gonna need me a fork in a little while. All right, I'm gonna wait for you to go ahead and serve yours. In our studio audience, would you all like some? We ain't worried about them. Would you all like some right now? The studio audience is my brother and my sister, y'all. You will meet them in the next episode. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and serve theirs up as well.
Okay.
And y'all gonna have to share. Y'all gonna have to share a bowl.
Once they take the
Just a little sample. It's a sample. Okay.
And I usually don't know how it tastes until I taste it, so it's different every time.
That's real cooks for you. They don't even try to test. Now me, when I'm cooking, I be nibbling the whole time. I'm the type where by the time we get finished, wait for me, Milas.
Oh yeah, me.
Hold on, let me get the studio audience real quick.
I was about to go tear it down. At least see what it tastes like.
I'm the kind of cook, I know how my food tastes by the end because I done sampled it all the way through and I be full, okay? Okay, I know I'm not the only one that is that way. 1 second, and here you all go. You're not gonna eat none? Okay, all right, so here we go.
Yes.
All right, let's see. Ready?
Yes.
Baby, you all right with me? When I tell you this is so good, and it's got just the right amount of heat, what y'all think? It is special. That's the word. This is special. Let me get a little bit more of that. Hold on, let's see.
Yeah.
It's definitely got a little kick, but
That's Tony's.
but it's not too much.
Remember peppers?
Cameron, you want some? Okay, so I think we want to leave you all, because now we eating and we're gonna wrap this thing on up. And we want to leave you all with just a special word. What would you like our audience to know about purchasing their first home? What would you say?
It's going to be a process to it. You're going to come out as a different person, but just, keep God first and know what you like. And it's okay if you kind of second guess yourself, but understand that property rates go up. Like, since I've had my house, it's at least worth $10,000 more since I've been there. But just work with people you trust. Understand that not everything is going to be perfect. The process isn't going to be perfect. Your realtor is not going to be perfect, and that's a good sign, because some people think that they got it all down packed. So transparency is, important, and don't rely on pictures, because that's what kept making me second guess about my property that I have now. So I ended up closing on that one that I dropped on Valentine's Day, but the pictures didn't do it justice. So when I went back in, I was like, okay, now I like this. It's the one. And just trust God. Like, I got my unit came furnished. I had like a brand new flat screen TV, a whole library. Only thing I had to do was get a couch. So just trust the process, trust yourself in a sense, pray first, and just keep taking a step forward and enjoy every moment of the journey. You'll get there. So cry if you need to, scream, but just know that you're gonna be all right in the end.
All right, you all. This has been an episode of The Story Behind the House with Terrica Wright Real Estate. Honey, this is a place where there is good real estate, good people, good food, and
good Lord.
Good Lord. See y'all soon.
See ya.